The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is hump day in the Riv and after a council meeting. So, but first, and as always, during this new normal, the numbers from Starfleet Admiral COVID.
Da 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 da.
That's it.
Total cases as of yesterday is 582,159. New cases was 1,476. Total deaths is 16,578. New deaths was 20. Bristol County had 58,392 total. So there you go. Quick and easy.
Quick and easy. Yep. And so stay tuned. We don't know. Now that's has been put in a rearview mirror. It was only an issue when there was an election on the horizon. Now it's, well, let's see what happens. No biggie. And yesterday we had a council meeting, and it was pretty, it had its moments there.
Yes, it did.
When they read your letter and my letter into the record. It's citizens' input on different subjects. But fundamentally, it was pretty, it got a little lively there with the Watson School and a few other issues here, and it was pretty good. And I guess the Watson School, I think it exposed one of the inherent and systemic. That's the new word we use today. Everything is systemic problem with the council, that they always do everything at the 11th hour, and it's always an emergency because the sky's going to fall, and we're going to get sued. We're going to get this. This one isn't going to authorize the money. This one, no matter what you do, whether it's the $263 million school, when we were fighting it, they said, "Oh, we've got to do it. We can't wait. We can't delay. To make sure we've got money, we just got to get the bond." And now it was yesterday. We have to vote on this, even if we don't know the numbers. Let's just vote on it, give them the money, and then figure out if we're using the money correctly. And I think that was a very, very interesting little exchange there. And a lot of things were brought out, like the way the city does business. Now, the council president brought up the fact that this was brought up in 2019.
That's right.
And they approved the money. Yet a building permit for phase 1 was not pulled for 11 months.
Correct.
Nearly a year. And now we're having a big emergency. Why do we have an emergency? We have an emergency because the school department didn't do the job. They went and requested money, they got the money, and then they sat on it for 11 months. So, if there's someone to blame here, it's the school department. And of course, now they're delaying it again because our resident thorn in the side, Matt Malone, refuses to go before the council to discuss the finances. And I guess Councilor Pereira was very upset because she said, the kids, here we go with the kids. And I actually had a conversation with her last night. And she called me, and I told her, I said, with all due respect, this delay wasn't caused by the council. And it's the council's job to ensure that money is spent properly. And I think I agree with the councilors who said, let's get him in here and let's get all our questions answered so we can tell the people that we represent, whose tax money we are spending, that we look this over and we feel it's being done correctly. And the ones who didn't, it's always like, I don't care if we overspend. I don't care if we pay triple what we should be paying. I don't care. We just diddled around with this until it became an emergency, and we're going to make an emergency out of this deal. And so we're going to throw away and stomp all over the taxpayers. It's kind of like the realization that we basically lost $125,000 per truck when we eliminated the trash trucks. But who cares? We took a loss of $125,000 on every single truck. But they don't care. It's only your money. It's not their money. No biggie. It's just the taxpayers' money. So again, the taxpayer gets screwed. We pay more than anybody else. We're paying more, as I said, for our athletic fields than an entire commercial pier in Rhode Island to be replaced in the water. But nobody cares, it seems. But yesterday, actually, I heard something that was really warmed the cockles of my heart. I heard a couple of councilors actually utter the words taxpayer. So that was good. So come on, CJ. I know you want to weigh on this one quick. So.
Oh, well, I'll tell you. I liked Sean Kadim's statements. He said, you know what? I'm going to say what I need to say. If the voters aren't going to vote me back in, that's fine. He goes, I've served on the school committee. I've served on this city council, and I'm going to say what needs to be said. And waiting until the last minute, as they always do, and that was directed right at Mary Sahadi, who was sitting there, and the mayor, who was probably upstairs watching, and it was directed at the school committee, waiting till the last minute, expecting us to approve it, because it's always an emergency. This is what I said in my letter has got to stop. All right? And somebody brought out the fact that, yes, this is a $12 million package, but we've broken it up so the voters can't approve it. But now they're talking about new buildings that are going to be $10 million, $12 million, $13 million, and they're going to have to go to the voters. What's going to happen if the voter says no? We're going to break it up so that we can do it again? This is the problem they have. They don't trust the voters. Maybe because the voters are sick and tired of getting screwed by the administration every time they turn around and say, we need more taxes, we need more fees. It's not acceptable. But they don't care. I mean, why should Paul Coogan care? He's getting a pension of $100,000+ a year probably, and he's getting $120,000 a year as a sitting mayor. He's making enough money. Who cares? And probably when he's out of office, he'll leave, just like everyone else does. But who's gonna suffer with the remnants, with the fecal matter that he leaves behind? We are. And we're going to suffer with it. And that's why people in Fall River are saying, you know what? They want to give me $300,000, $400,000 for my home. Buy it. Take it off my hands. I'm out of here. I'll move to Florida. I'll move somewhere else. That's what people are doing. Those that can will. Those that can't have to suck it up. And that's a lot of our seniors who can't afford to pay with the bills that they're getting now. Let's be real. I got a $600 water bill last quarter. Luckily, I was able to afford to pay it. But guess what? I know that there may be a little old lady or gentleman out there that can't afford to pay $600 for a water bill. And what's going to happen then? We're going to shut their water off?
Yeah.
This is why This is why we have to hold these people accountable. This is why we have to elect an entire new slate of officers. And I mean, do not vote for any incumbents. Anyone but an incumbent. That's the way it's got to be. Anyone but an incumbent. Especially the gang of four in the school committee. Especially them. And you know what? The anyone but Coogan line is also got to play out here. Because he's not doing anything for the voter. He's not doing anything for the citizens. He's proving exactly what we knew was going to happen. He lied to us during the Durfee Rising situation where they're trying to get the voters to vote for the debt exclusion. They got the debt exclusion, and now we find out that they were lying about it all. That's right. The mayor was lying about it. Oh, wait a minute. That's campaigning. It's not a lie. It's a campaign. So Let's be real. But we were asked, and people asked directly, what about the fields? What about the football fields? What about the fields? You're going to spend $9 million on a pool. What about the fields? And they're also, it's all set. It's all included. Everything's set. It's all included. And then when the mayor ever turned around and sent me an email saying, have you ever had a field that didn't need general maintenance? We weren't talking about general maintenance. We're talking about the fact that you required another field. You required $8 million for another field, and you never told the people that was going to happen. You never told the people that. Why? Because as soon as they heard that there was going to be more money after the fact, they would probably shut down the bond for the school. And then what would you have done? You would have found a way to make it work. This is Fall River. This isn't Newton. You have to find a way to make things work, and that's it. I have to give credit to Michelle Dion. I had a conversation with her before the meeting yesterday. I brought up some of the issues that I brought up in my letter. We talked about them. She brought them up and confirmed them again. It's nice to have a city councilor that you can call and talk to. They take your phone calls and they answer it. I know that Pamela Liberté-LeBeau last night turned around and said, Mr. Ferry brought up the bonding limit. Isn't that a guideline? And Mary Sahadi said, yes, that's just a guideline. So I had brought up in my letter that this is a guideline. But for some reason, I guess she missed that point. So I sent her an email last night right away saying, I mentioned in the letter that it served as a guideline. But nonetheless, as you and I have spoken about, they raised it $10 million. So that's a $10 million blank check. Do we have to get a citizens initiative petition so that the city can only bond $10 million and cannot bond a dime over it unless the voters approve it? I guess we're going to have to, because obviously we can't trust our city council to do it.
Well, you're 100% right, CJ. We've had that conversation. I've had that conversation with a few city councilors. Basically, what they want to do is write a blank check for $10 million. They don't even have to say why we have to bond. They just got another $10 million. See, we can't do that. We can't just say, well, we're going to increase our savings account by $10 million. Well, where are you going to get the money? Oh, don't worry about it. We'll get it. I'll get it from my neighbors and the taxpayers. But to get back to the point you made about them not trusting the taxpayer, it's the taxpayer that doesn't trust them anymore, because the city council has to realize every time they allow a bond to be broken up and they allow bond ceilings to be changed, debt ceilings to be changed, without asking the people who they are there to serve, to represent, they are not doing their job. And I won't say no incumbent, but I will not vote for any incumbent who does not listen to the taxpayer. And as I said, last night they mentioned the taxpayer. They had better begin to pay attention. There should be no splitting of bonds. Nothing ever goes before the taxpayer, and they should. And as you said, we may be forced to start an initiative petition to make them control the spending and make them accountable. Listen, we got our big boy pants on. We've been doing this a long time. Take it to a vote. If you can BS the public to spend all kinds of money, then they don't have any reason to complain about their fees and taxes going up all the time and going bankrupt and having to sell their houses. And they don't care about the elderly and people on fixed incomes and people that don't make a lot of money. So let's just put those cards on the table. Let's not play pretend. We're so concerned about the city. We're so concerned, but the hell with it. We're just going to build the best baseball field, not just a good baseball field, not just a better baseball field, the best baseball field, better than Newton, better than the cities that got 10 times the amount of money, 10 times the amount of businesses. And we're going to break up every bond so the voters never get to say whether they want it or not. My philosophy is, who are you there for? What does our Constitution say? They are our agents and our substitutes and at all times answerable to us. Yet they're never answerable. They never hold themselves accountable. When the city council allows them to break up these things and not allow the people who elected them to give them their opinion, they don't deserve to be sitting in those seats. It's that simple. It's not rocket science. They never stop spending, no matter how much money. Now you got the mayor saying, I'm going to sit down with my banker buddies and my friends and figure out how to spend the money. Well, guess what? That's not right. The people, and I believe Jean St. Pierre put on something, you and I were discussing it earlier. He made a comment about it, and he's right. The people should say, so what is what are his banker buddies going to do? Figure out the ways they can make money, get a little cut of the action? Let's do this project and that project and that project. And well, my buddy might get to finance this one, or my buddy might get this contract. And, the same old, same old. Because what happens in Fall River, no matter how much money we get, that's why I ended my letter with my quote from Milton Friedman. If you give the government the Sahara Desert, in 5 years, there'll be a shortage of sand. Well, there's always a shortage of money in this city because no matter how much we get, we manage to spend it and need more because it's like a giant vacuum cleaner over there. And what they do is they're bonding us into oblivion. And they're bonding illegally, as far as I'm concerned. And that's going to be another thing that we may end up with. We may end up filing a complaint with the state. I believe this is not in compliance with their fiduciary obligation and the fact that if you're going to bond and you have a project, you can't split it up piecemeal so the voters cannot speak on it. And like I said, we got our big boy pants on. If you take every one of these things to a bond and we lose at the ballot box, well, we'll say we think you're wrong, but we'll accept it because the people who were paying for it have spoken. Not you. It wasn't your personal decision. It wasn't Brad Kilby's decision. It wasn't the city council's decision. It was the people of Fall River's decision. These things should come before the people. We're not talking nickels and dimes here. We're talking millions of dollars. And it's just what happened yesterday was just a microcosm of their detachment from reality. They're talking about this like, well, this is our decision. No, it's the people's decision. Pay attention to the people. And the only good part of that meeting were two things. Number one, they actually mentioned, a couple of councils actually mentioned taxpayers, and kudos to them. And the other thing was Mary Sahadi, even though she didn't completely tell the truth, she went from the big giant fat lie to a little lie. I believe Council President Ponte got it to admit that she overprojected the healthcare cost. But she didn't overproject. She padded it. It's not an overprojection. She doesn't project anything about that number. That number was created by Blue Cross and Gallagher and their actuarials. That number was solid. She added things to pad the budget. She added life insurance and stop loss insurance and other things to that bill to come out to $45 million. And that's fundamentally fraud. Because if you look in another place in that budget, there's a line item for those things. Stop loss in life insurance. So she's double dipping to pad the budget. And that's fundamentally fraud. But so she didn't over project. She added to a figure that was done by professionals just so she could get more money to play around with. And those are the only two good things that we saw. Hooray for the taxpayer. And guess what? Like you said, CJ, in your letter, you've got to pay attention.
Well, you have to. And that's the one thing that goes on. The voter doesn't pay attention. I mean, there was a lot of commentary on that meeting last night. If you were watching it online or on one of the servers, And the thing that gets me is there are people who are not even from Fall River who are making comments on how our money should be spent, but our own voters aren't doing it. The Watson School was such a contentious situation yesterday because it wasn't on the agenda. So if it wasn't on the agenda, why they were talking about it is beyond me, but we know why they were talking about it. And it was such a contentious issue that they just made it worse. And you had a principal calling in, a parent sending a letter in, demanding that they approve that money so that the ADA compliance issues can be addressed. And as was brought out, that was brought out a couple of years ago, and they waited 11 months to take out the permit, and now they're waiting until the last minute because they've got a report due in November, and the project's supposed to be done. They'll probably be, and Linda Pereira said it, they'll probably be able to get the extension, but they shouldn't have to. No, they shouldn't have to, had they been doing the work, but they didn't do the work. And that's their fault. And as Sean Kadim said, what are we going to do? Approve it now and then talk about it later? I don't do it that way. And if I'm not going to get reelected because of that, then so be it. So be it. And that's the truth. You cannot run a business that way. And like it or not, city government is a form of a business. We don't generate revenue by selling products. We generate revenue by taxing and fees. So remember that every time they spend a dime, every time they take out a bond, that's your taxes and fees. And that's what makes it worse.
Yeah, you're right. But let's look at this. The point you just made. You got a principal making comments, demanding. Why didn't the principal demand that the school committee pull a permit, not wait 11 months to pull a permit? You know why? Because the school committee's his boss. He's not gonna go throw mud balls at people who are voting on his pay raise or her pay raise. They all kept their mouth shut. Now all the special interest groups are out of the closet. They're all talking and putting it on the city council. Well, it wasn't the city council that the city council brought it up in 2019. They authorized the funds. It was supposed to be done by 2020, mid-2020. Phase 2 was supposed to be implemented and done by now. Did anybody think about that? All those people writing in their comments, why don't you go cry to your bosses? Were you crying to the school committee about the Watson School for 11 months while they were waiting to pull a permit after they authorized the money to fix it and they did nothing? No. Because you're a bunch of phonies. You kept your mouth shut because you didn't want to step on a political toes that feed you. But when it got to the council, you're throwing crap balls at everybody. Well, it's not their fault. And kudos to those 5 councilors that didn't play into this circus.
Well, it was interesting because a lot of the citizens and non-citizens of Fall River, because there were people who are not citizens of Fall River making comments, because again, they think they have a right to, said they want to know. We want transparency. Here we go. They want transparency when it works for them. We want transparency. We want to know who voted not to put this on the ballot. And you know what? All 5 of them said, I did. They took their responsibility, which is what they should have done. And I applaud them for that. But one of the things that came up, which was very clear, and I said this in my letter to the city council, so I was glad Sean Kadim confirmed it. The school department came before the city council, I don't know if it was 2019 or just before that, asking for money for the Watson School. And the question was asked, what is your plan for the school? How long are you going to keep it active? How long is it going to be an active school? And they said, well, we're thinking of changing it from an elementary school to a pre-K to first grade school. Well, if you plan on changing the function of the school, why are you going to dump all this money into it now? Why are you going to do that? And that's what I said. What's the return on investment going to be? Are we going to dump all this money in here, and in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, we're going to turn around and say, oh, we don't need this building anymore. We're going to close it down and demolish it. Is that what's going to happen? Guess what? You got to be responsible with the money.
Yeah, who cares? It's on taxpayer money, CJ.
That's the problem. That's what they always say, and that's what the school department constantly says. And I said to them in my letter, the school department has become its own little fiefdom, and they have. We've said that I don't know how many times on this show. They've become their own little fiefdom.
Absolutely, and let's give a shout out to Chris Peckham too, because he said something that I think was very, very, very appropriate. He said, "Listen, the superintendent of schools had 2 opportunities to come before this, and this thing would have been done. And he's still categorically refusing it. And the school committee's protecting him. And there are rumors that the mayor said he didn't have to show up because of that disastrous charter. Well, he still could have been ordered there by the school committee, but they didn't because they're still providing cover." And Chris Peckham was right. Listen, Mr. Malone, seems that you don't mind bullying women, old people, and people with disabilities. Well, put on your big boy pants and go over to the council and answer the questions. If you truly think that this is as big an emergency as it was, what's the big deal? Any city administrator has to go before the council to answer any questions within their purview. The CFO has to be there to answer financial questions, even though she never answers them adequately, but she's there. But the fact is that any department head can be called in front of the city council, another defect in our charter. Whoever put that in was a politician protecting their fiefdom. But the reality is, Councilor Peckham was 100% right. If you really think this is a critical issue, why don't you go before the council? You like to run your mouth all the time with people who are weaker than you. Go over there and answer the questions. And if you become belligerent or they become belligerent, that's what the president is there for, to maintain order. If this is a critical issue, let's see if you can act like a professional for once in your life. And as that individual who wrote about you said, stop trying to be the most immature person in the room and get the damn job done. This whole thing's being caused by the school department, the school committee, and the superintendent of schools. They're the one that are making this project an emergency with funds that were appropriated in 2019. So let's not forget that. And that's the problem. The problem is everything in the city's always done because the sky's going to fall in. Well, guess what? It's about time for it not to get done until you do it right.
Well, what's very interesting, you brought something up. Councilor Ponte said very clearly last night, what is he afraid of? He goes, if somebody gets out of line, I'm going to immediately bang the gavel and call them back into order. Just like I would do for any other person speaking before the council, any other department head. So what's he afraid of? There's nothing to be afraid of here, because if somebody gets out of order, I will bang the gavel, I will put them back in order. They're not going to bite off his head. They want answers to questions on why this didn't happen. Why did you take so long? Why weren't these baseball fields included in the debt exclusion? Why, these are serious questions that the voters want answers to. Not only the city council, but the voters. And if we don't get those answers, what good is it? We have to have those answers. And that's the problem. We're not getting answers from the school committee because they don't believe they have to answer to us, because they believe they're their own fiefdom. We're our own world. We have our own superintendent. We have our own treasurer. We have our own accountant. We have our own everything. And nobody can tell us what to do because we are the power. We are the ones that have the say. And that's the big problem. And as our friend Gene would say, and that's the bottom line.
And as we always say, this should make you stay angry.
That's right. Well, we're out of time, people. Thanks for watching. Remember, hold your politicians accountable. It's always hard to do, but it's easy to say something about it. Remember, stay safe, stay angry, wear a mask, and have a great day. Thanks for inviting us into your home.